What is going on, everybody? Welcome back here to the channel and welcome in to the reveal of my number 28th ranked team in my NBA preseason power rankings. In today's episode, we're going to be diving into my number 28th ranked Portland Trail Blazers. Kind of, I think surprising some people here with the Blazers coming in at 28. I feel like some people might have expected to have already seen them here, but there is some talent on this roster. There is some reason for optimism, even not right now, but like down the line. And we're gonna have a fun time diving into this Blazers roster. I have the pleasure and the honor to have my guy Danny Marang of the Jack Ramsey podcast. He does a bunch of other great stuff as well, including radio out in the Portland area. He's gonna come on for a great interview at the end of this show. Do not want to miss that. But yeah, I mean, this was a very interesting season, to say the least, for the Portland Trail Blazers. Coming off the Damian Lillard trade, they had to kind of figure out life after Damian Lillard. And this team is starting to kind of figure out what way they want to go. They're starting to figure out the direction going forward. We're going to start things off how we always start them off, with our offseason recap, kind of going through their additions and departures and seeing where the team got better at, who they lose, etc. It was a very quiet offseason here in Portland. The Blazers, in terms of offseason moves, they really only did one thing, and it all happened on the same day, on draft day. They traded for Denny Avdia, They traded the 14th pick in this year's draft, Malcolm Brogdon, and I want to say it's like a future swap in 2029 to go get Denny Avdia, and we'll talk about Denny Avdia a little bit later on. And then they used the 7th overall pick. And, there were a couple of teams that really wanted to trade up. The Bulls were rumoredly one of those teams. Danny, in our interview at the end of the show, kind of says, no, Chicago really wanted Buzelis. But really the team was Memphis. And for Portland, it felt like, man, how lucky do you have to be here to just get Donovan Clingan right here at 7? Kind of just falling in your laps in a way. So, we're going to, just gush over both of these guys. In terms of what, like, their offseason, right, one of the, more surprising things for me, at least, I 1,000% anticipated them to fire Chauncey Billups. I thought they were going to fire Chauncey. They didn't. Chauncey Billups, one more year left on his deal. And I feel like we know where we're at now. Chauncey, I think I was reading an article in preparation for this series about Chauncey, and it feels like there is a little bit misalignment, and I should have asked Danny about this, but there's a little bit of a disalignment, I feel, where the front office and Joe Cronin, they're all in on, no, we are rebuilding or whatever, we're all about player development, yada, yada. And Chauncey's like, well, we want to be player development, but we also want to win. Because I think Chauncey knows. And I think that when we're talking about like Chauncey's job this year, I think, and this is kind of an easy way to get to the coaching discussion here with Chauncey. That's definitely something I want to get to here. I think with Chauncey, for Chauncey to keep his job, I think one of two things need to happen. And really, I just think it's the one thing, because I think he actually already has something going for him. And these guys, I think, genuinely like enjoy playing for Chauncey Billups, right? This team was really bad last season, and like I think I was watching a Clippers game. They're playing the Clippers, and they are getting just destroyed. And that didn't change like how hard Jeremy Grant would play, or how hard Shaedon Sharpe or Tamari Kamara would play, etc., who's a dog, by the way. So, like, that is one of the best compliments that you can give Chauncey Billups. So one of the things he has working for him is like, dog, these guys love playing for him at the end of the day. And then the second thing really is like, can Scoot Henderson kind of not put it together? You don't need Scoot to put it together right like this year, but what you need from Scoot Henderson, and this is where Chauncey comes in, like like the front office's mindset is the correct one, where it's, no, we are about player development right now. I could give two shits less about winning games right now if I'm Joe Cronin and the Portland Trail Blazers, right? You're approaching a, dare I say, generational draft class. Cooper Flagg, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, VJ Edgecombe, etc. I don't care about winning right now. Like, I'm more concerned about, like, can Scoot start to show us those flashes of, hey, this is why he was the third overall pick. This is why I had him in a tier of his own, completely separate from Brandon Miller, and why I shredded the Charlotte Hornets organization for taking Scoot Henderson, right? So, for not taking Scoot Henderson. And that's why I think you really need to see. He is right now, if we're looking at optimism amongst the organization, he is right at the forefront of that. And that's what we need. That's what you need to see from Chauncey Billups. If Chauncey is expected to keep his job, that's what you need. That's what you need from Chauncey. And then going back to the Denny Avdia trade, look, I get it. Apparently there were people in the Portland, there were some Portland Trailblazer fans that, saw the Denny trade and went, ooh, that's kind of an overpay. And that was, new to me when Denny brought that up to me. But that, first off, the contract is insane. And it is truly like probably the best contract in all of basketball right now. Because you look at that last 30-ish game stretch from Denny Avdia, and I want to save as much as my player breakdown on him for the roster breakdown in just a sec. But he averaged 19-ish points, 9 boards, almost 4 assists on like 52% shooting from the floor and 36% from 3. Like, this guy has only continued to get better. And then he is also a two-way wing. And I think this team going forward, let's say Scoot Henderson like really pops, right? And by year 3, Scoot really pops. Then your core going forward, just with current players, we could screw the 25 draft for now. It's Scoot Henderson, it's Denny Avdia, it's Shaedon Sharpe, it's Tumari, it's Donovan Clingan, and that is a hell of a 5-man grouping to say, oh yeah, like this is a really, really nice 5. So I'm excited. I'm actually excited about the future of the Blazers. They have to get this year right. And, this is a great way to kind of wrap up the offseason talk. They got to get the season right. And how you get the season right is like I said again, like Scoot Henderson starts to show you some of the reasons why he was the third overall pick. And you are not winning too many games to the point where, oh no, you fall outside the top 5, right? That's how you make the season a success, right? Now let's dive in here to our roster breakdown, player by player. And let's start off with the starters. Obviously, we got Scoot Henderson, Anthony Simons, Denny Avdia, Jeremy Gray, DeAndre Ayton. There is definitely the argument that, like, hey, Shaedon Sharpe is probably going to start next to Anthony Simons, so we'll just throw him in this mixture here. Chauncey Billups does get the worst grade you can give a coach in terms of the color, like, of his card. I do think he's in that group of, like, the 3 worst coaches in the NBA. There's some redeeming qualities, like I've already mentioned, but man, you watch a Blazers game, be like, ooh, like this is rough. And give him some benefit of the doubt. The players that he's had to work with hasn't always been the best, but he has like marginally gotten better. But I just don't think he's currently that great of a head coach. Could definitely surpass this ranking, and this does actually drag the Blazers back just a little bit because he doesn't give them a benefit of the doubt, if you will. They're like Eric Spoelstra or even a Will Hardy now at this point kind of does in terms of just raising the floor of this team. But Scoot Henderson does not get the green arrow up. Actually, technically nobody does for me here with the with the Blazers, but. And I kind of described this in the interview with Jack at the, with Danny at the end, that it's not because I don't like Scoot or because I don't still see the potential of Scoot. It's because I think Scoot, because of the G League Ignite, Scoot is realistically like another year. It's an added year to Scoot's development curve, I think, where it's not going to be this year. This year, you're just hoping to see like that thing with Scoot. Like, ooh, okay, I like this. Can this be really like it with you, right? And just continue to grow for development, where then it's year 3 where you're like, oh, okay, like Scoot's figured it out, right? So I think we're a year away from starting to get those types of games. You got a couple of, you got like the sparing one, like down the stretch of this season. Like the Charlotte Hornets game sticks out to me a lot. Down the stretch at Charlotte, he had, I want to say 21 points, like 11 assists, shot pretty efficiently, only had 3 turnovers if I remember correctly. Like those controlled games were, pretty efficient, low turnovers, and he's just in control of the game, you're another year away, I think. And Scoot, like I've already said, he was my number 2 overall, graded player in that 2023 draft class. And there are certainly flashes of, why Scoot was that 3rd overall pick, but that's what they are right now. They're just flashes. I don't want to be, cruel, if you will. But they were encouraging. The flashes were, but it's still very much in the early, like, raw development stages with Scoot Henderson. The beginning of the year was just awful. It was, there's no one way to say it except that it was downright awful. And he can make, if we're going to the positives here, he can make just about any pass in terms of the versatility of passes he can make. It's ridiculous. Like, he can make the pocket pass to counter ice coverage. He can make a left-handed skip pass, right-handed skip pass, throws lobs fairly all right. There's not a pass on the floor he can't make. It's just, and this is again where I go back to talk about like his development curve and development track. It's like, when do I go with this skip? Where do I get more efficient or like know when to score, know when to be score hunting or like make these certain passes. His shot making off the dribble might have been a little bit better than expected. I thought like the pull-up game in terms of the mid-range area at the G League Ignite was something he did fairly all right. And then, he shot above 36% on both pull-up threes in pick and roll and isolation threes. So again, like some of the creation stuff in terms of his shot making arguably was better than expected last season. He just really needs to improve the consistency of, making reads and taking care of the ball. And the efficiency automatically will become better when he realizes like, hey, I got to be a freaking better finisher at the rim. And that's where I'm going to spend a lot of time here. We talked about this at the end too. Scoot Henderson, for a guy that is so built, right? It honestly makes no sense why he is such a bad finisher. He is nearly a worse finisher than Trae Young at the rim. He shot 47% at the rim last season. And you go back and you watch some Blazers film from last season. The only way I can really boil it down is, the only thing I can kind of give credit to that is, he just really, really struggles at this point. And you can say it's footwork. You can maybe say it's where he takes off at, and I can actually kind of see that. He just cannot finish through contact to save his life right now. And again, that makes no sense whatsoever, where he is a legit 6'3", built like a running back. And you're like, I don't get it with Scoot. He is athletic. He's not Russell Westbrook athlete, which is something that he got comped to. I actually don't even remember my pro comp for Scoot Henderson. He's not Russell Westbrook athlete, but he is a really good athlete that can finish above the rim and things of that nature. So that's concerning. If he is this 6'3" guard that can't shoot consistently and can't finish worth a damn, that is concerning. And that's where, if the playmaking is still kind of inconsistent in terms of the turnovers, the efficiency in terms of his playmaking, etc., right? If that's still, iffy heading into year 3, that's cool. But we got to get that 47% at the rim number up, at least 55, somewhere respectable, because 47%, like I said, it's just downright awful. And it's Trae Young-ish numbers. But the difference is Trae Young is one of the 5 best playmakers on the planet and also an elite jump shooter. And I know the efficiency doesn't stand out to you. Go watch the attention he gets defensively and how every shot he takes, whether it's his fault or the defense's credit, is a tough shot. So he's an elite jump shooter. Speaking of elite jump shooters, we got to talk about Anthony Simons, who I truly think, and Blazer fans, you let me know in the comments if this is a hot take. I truly think that Anthony Simons is, in terms of just offensive talent, we're going to get to the defensive side in just a sec for all these guys. But Anthony Simons, purely as an offensive-based player and his skill level, he is a fringe all-star caliber offensive player. Where if he gets hot, good grief, man. It is a nightmare for opposing teams if he's able to get hot. You watch his film, especially when he is hot or when the jumper is really, really falling, etc. You're like, damn, that's I've seen this before. And it's like, yeah, you have. That's Damian Lillard, like all over again as an offensive player. Now, obviously, Dame is a better offensive player, but the shot is so similar. The way that they kind of operate out of the pick and roll, it's so similar. It's actually kind of crazy how similar it is at times. I think one of the best parts about Anthony Simons' game is how versatile of an offensive piece he is, and why, if we're just talking about offensive fit, there is a pretty interesting fit with him next to Scoot Henderson. Anthony Simons last season shot 45% on catch-and-shoot threes and ranked in the 90th percentile percentage in spot-up scoring. In spot-up scoring efficiency. He has the ability as a movement shooter as well, obviously. Shot 40+% on threes, on handoff scoring possessions, transition threes, off-screen threes. You combine that with, like I said, the pick-and-roll scoring ability, where he has legitimate wiggle, nice pace, and the ability to kind of just, honestly, kind of blow by you in a sneaky way. More than a capable playmaker, he actually gets blitzed a ton, who had a career year in playmaking ability and assists per game, assist percentage, things like that. You want to see him be a little bit more durable. I want to say he only played 45 games last season. That could be wrong there. He played 46 games, so I was one game off. And he's only played more than 65 games once in his entire career. That would have been his sophomore year. Now, granted, he's had like 62 games, 57, 64. But you are going to probably be able to pencil in Anthony Simons to miss 15 at least games a season. So you do wish for him to be a little bit more durable. And I honestly, in the efficiency too, a little bit, right? Like, he's not incredibly efficient. It's not something to be ultra concerned about. But if I'm a team that needs an elite scorer, or like this, that has a defense that can kind of hide him to a certain extent, I would make a move for Anthony Simons. Like, there were talks. I think I should have asked Danny about this, and they were very preliminary to my understanding. If Orlando had somehow like just threw an offer at Anthony Simons, that would have made a ton of sense to me, especially now that they have Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, where it's like, okay, Anthony Simons, KCP, Franz Wagner, Paolo, Jonathan Isaac, Wendell Carter. I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, all right, check ball. We can hide this guy defensively. He has a ton of value, I think, and it's going to take a lot for him to get out of Portland. I think Portland really, really values him as an offensive player, and he's awesome. He's really, really good. And speaking of really, really good players, we have to talk Denny Avdia now as an actual player. You know, Denny is coming off of a career year last year, especially offensively, in every major advanced offensive category. You know, shot 38% on spot-up threes last season, which really just enhances his off-ball upside. Even if he's never this, box score 38% three-point shooter, if he's a 38% spot-up three-point shooter, then that's all I really care about with Denny. Like, okay, sure, go under a Denny Avdia ball screen. He's just going to still blow by you. He's still going to use his physicality and get by you as well. And arguably, like, he could have another breakout next season. Had a career year in true shooting percentage and assist percentage. And that stretch, like I kind of alluded to earlier, from like February on, which would have been 28 games, I want to say, for Denny Avdia, 18.6 points, 9 boards while shooting 50+% from the field. He's awesome, right? He is I'm going to say above average playmaker. I think like the reads are there. He is very much, I think, in the connective playmaker boat right now, where, okay, Denny Avdia sets a screen. He's a short roll playmaker, and he has more than, the capability to read the floor, process what's going on, and make the appropriate pass, right? I think with Denny, to reach that next step, he has to cut back on the turnover percentage. Like, his turnover percentage was 15%. That's a little bit too high for a guy that we might want to be on the ball more, and that does hinder his upside a little bit. But his ability to get to the rim and finish athletically is probably his best offensive quality, along with, like I said, the connective playmaking, the off-ball cutting. He has really nice feel and timing for his cuts. Need a little bit more of an in-between game with Denny. Does not trust it enough to go to it, and when he does, it's not very clean as of right now. At least like a real floater, I feel. And that's going to hold it back a little bit. And, why the green arrow isn't all the way pointing up yet on Denny. But if Deni Avdija crushes his 80 overall ranking, I would not be surprised, and that'll be a massive hit for the Portland Trailblazers. And then Jeremy Grant. I mean, I think the theme of this Portland offense, at least with these three, honestly, even 4 or 5, you get to Shaedon Sharpe and DeAndre Ayton. With Jeremy Grant, he is such a underrated offensive player to the point where it's like, I think people don't think he's a good off-ball player. I'm like, yes, the hell he is. He can score off of off-screen stuff. Like, honestly, Portland, if they needed to, can run the offense entirely through Anthony Simons and Scoot Henderson and Shaedon Sharpe. And Jeremy Grant will still get 20 points a game because he's an elite off-ball catch-and-shoot three-point shooter. He can score off of off-screen stuff, gets to the mid-range, hit great finisher at the basket, obviously, can post up, can score off a movement, like DHO action, stuff like that. He is an underrated offensive player, truthfully, right? And although he had, and I know people are going to say, well, Sean, how is he a good finisher when he had career low efficiency at the rim? Well, like, look at the film and look at the numbers. He had the worst rim shot quality in the entire league. The only on-ball primary creator to have a worse rim shot quality than Jeremy Grant last season is Cade Cunningham and the Pistons, right? Like, the amount of times the teams would just collapse on a Jeremy Grant drive and not allow him to get a clean look at the rim is what was very, very often. Like, go watch Jeremy Grant stuff from last season, man. Really talented off-ball shooter, like I said, where he shot 44% on spot-up threes last year. Like I already said, more than comfortable and capable post-up scorer, especially against a mismatch where he can go to actually a variety of different post-up moves. He has the little baby hook. He could go to the fadeaway. He could just hit mid-range jumpers over you. He is a really, really talented scorer, and I don't think he gets enough credit for that. Like, yeah, he's a bad rebounder. He's always been a bad rebounder. Not much of a playmaker, but like, if we're just saying, hey, Jeremy Grant, go score 20, he's a really good scorer, and I don't think he gets enough credit for that. There's really not much I can complain about. I mean, we already said like the playmaking, sure. But outside of that, there's not a ton I can really complain about from Jeremy Grant in terms of his offensive ability. And therefore, like, he's really good. He's really good. And a team that is contending might have to penny up and go after Jeremy Grant. That we have dominated because, oh boy, was DeAndre Ayton. I want to say it was like post All-Star break, and he was averaging 22 points, like 12 rebounds, a block on 60% from the floor. And I forgot to bring this up with Scoot Henderson. But that little two-man game that they were kind of developing down the stretch, it started to like really, really look good. And they really involved DeAndre Ayton. And again, another question I probably should have asked Danny. I don't know what they're going to do with DeAndre Ayton long term. Because, you know, they drafted Dominic Clingan, but DeAndre Ayton has had a really good year. For sure, really good like last 2 months of the season. So with DeAndre Ayton, obviously not really a three-point shooter, but the mid-range game he has, a more than reliable post-up scorer. I think with Ayton, it's always been like, does he have the motor? Does he have the every-night ability? And, you know, there were some narratives that he was soft. And I'm happy that DeAndre Ayton, more than happy to see DeAndre Ayton kind of combat that and say, no, I am a really good basketball player still. And I think he might even still has some room to grow, and it'll be fun to watch DeAndre Ayton continue to grow with this team. Really good finisher above the rim. You obviously saw a lot of those lobs with Chris Paul, him and Scoot Henderson, like I already mentioned. Starting to build some of that chemistry too. So DeAndre Ayton is a really, really fun player that I'm excited to watch next season. This Portland team, like Portland in the first couple of months of the season, is going to be a big league pass team for me. Post trade deadline on, I'll probably ignore the Blazers. Let's move on. Let's go to Shaedon Sharpe. And this is the guy that I had on my breakout list heading into last season. And I honestly I wasn't wrong on Shaedon Sharpe. He was dealing with that core injury, caused him to only play 36 games last season. But if we're talking about smoothness of play, man, is he good. I'm sorry, he only played 32 games. Let me really quickly fact check that. Yeah, Shaden played 32 games, but I think with Shaden, number one, you want him to be just a tad bit more efficient, and that's where I'm going to start. But when Shaden Sharp was healthy last season, guys, man, was this guy just stuffing the stat sheet, right? He is a guy that is so damn smooth. Like, he had a stretch, pretty much up until he got hurt, like a 5-game sample size where we're going to run that from November 30th to December 11th, where not Anthony Simons, Shaden Sharp was averaging 26 points, 6.6 boards, and 5 assists on 52% shooting from the floor, 46% from 3, and 80% from the line. Like, that is what Shaden Sharp can be. Danny talked about it a lot at the end of the show, like how he has, Brandon Royisms to him. And you see it, honestly, just the pure athleticism, how simple that, like, Shaden Sharp tries to play the game is honestly refreshing in a way where he doesn't really expend a lot of energy out there. He's going, quick jab crossover, and he has you beat because his quick twitch ability is elite. And, when I do my top 10 breakout candidates, right before the season starts, trust and believe Shaden Sharp is going to be up there. Shaden Sharp is going to be up there near the top of the list, if we're being honest here. He, again, the kind of the theme of this has been just versatile offensive pieces. He shot 47% on spot up threes last season, shot 39% on, off-screen threes, 36% on isolation threes. I think my next step for Shaden Sharp is just to be a little more consistent as a self-created scorer. He really struggled in pick and roll created possessions. He was in the 19th percentile in terms of pick and roll scoring efficiency. We'll like to see that tighten up just a little bit. But again, another guy, there's a lot of guys here you could really argue have that arrow pointing up. And then you have Robert Williams here still. I honestly think like his spot on the roster is kind of like up in the air, and that definitely feels like a prime trade candidate. I like Robert Williams. I wish that Robert Williams was able to stay healthy. Like, that 2022 Celtics version of Robert Williams was really, really fun. Solid rebounder, solid defender, good play finisher at the rim. Just got to stay healthy. Jabari Walker, Chris Murray, Tamari Kamara are all guys that I like. I think they have more development to come. But tomorrow we're going to get to him, especially with the defensive side of the floor. And they're all fun. Matisse Thybulle, I think at this point we know what he is as an offensive player. I think if he was a better offensive player, we would honestly be able to flash off kind of that elite defense and disrupting ability he has. Again, we're going to get to that here in just a second. I really want to touch on Donovan Clingan here, and let me really quickly pull up my scouting report on Donovan Clingan, who my pro comp for Donovan Clingan was Rudy Gobert light in terms of, like, he's so physical. And I think what he did a really, really good job of at UConn was if you let him create an advantage, like his body positioning and technique on like duck-ins and post-ups and stuff like that really, really complements his obviously physical size, physical and just frame in general. Really just solid footwork as well. I think despite being a non-shooting threat currently, I think because of that UConn system, he still tracks to be a capable modern 5-out big that, due to his incredible screening ability, due to his ability to read defenses and process what's going on and make plays with the ball in his hands, out of delay action or reading post double teams, I think that he can, be operate just fine. I've talked about a lot, actually, how, that the UConn system probably helped out Donovan Clingan more than it helped out Stephon Castle. Like, if you took both of them off, I think, Castle in another situation might have been able to flash off some of what he's good at, where Clingan, maybe some of the concerns about him are a little bit higher. I think while he does have good technique and solid footwork, self-creation wise, we already talked about him not being a reliable floor spacer at the moment. There's just not a ton of post moves, currently that you can work with. He's really relying on his technique pre-catch and just his size to elevate over you at the rim. that is something though that I'm like, yeah, he can probably just develop that, right? I'm not really worried about that with Donovan Clingan. So Clingan, we're obviously gonna have our fun talking about Donovan Clingan once we get to this defense, to his defense, and let's screw it, let's stick with Donovan Clingan. Let's move over to this defense and Clingan defensively, right? I think that Clingan, I described in our interview at the end of the show with my guy Danny. I said Clingan, if Clingan by the end of the season is a top 10 defensive big in the entire league, that would not surprise me one bit, right? I think again his technique is just incredible defensively. He uses his size and frame really nicely. Again, like, and I've talked about this a lot on this channel, there is a massive difference between being a shot blocker and a rim protector. Donovan Clingan is a rim protector, right? You feel his gravity defensively. It's, again, Rudy Gobert-esque, right, in terms of his ability and just instincts and IQ around the rim, and especially as a help defender, to just alter shots and not always have to block a shot to alter it. He get his alter shots due to his length and his size. He's actually incredible in terms of his rim protection ability. And I have to play on a little bit of the short end. I can't give him like a Denny Avdia ranking or a Nick Claxton ranking. But day one, he's going to be this team's best defensive big, I think. And maybe I'm being a little bit hyperbolic with that one. You guys let me know in the comments, but I really like Donovan Clingan. He is awesome. And speaking of, let's stay with the bench because they got some fun pieces here defensively. Toumani Camara, man, he is so fun. He just never runs out of energy. He is 6'7", long arms, athletic as hell, and can guard 1 through 3, maybe even 1 through 4, right? I think with Toumani, you're really hoping that, okay, the shot is a little bit more consistent offensively for him so that you don't kind of fall into a Matisse Thybulle situation. Toumani only shot, 32% on spot up threes last season, 32% in transition threes. And overall, he shot 34% on catch and shoot threes. Be a little bit more consistent, and I don't know how he falls out of the rotation. Maybe I'm selling him short a little bit, right? Because he is truthfully awesome defensively, and we talked about him a little bit towards the end as well. And then Matisse Thybulle, just a disruptor, just a flat-out disruptor defensively, where Matisse Thybulle is a pain in the ass to just have to match up against, because he's gonna get in you. Right, he's athletic. He navigates screens really well. He is the pest. He is the defensive playmaker. He is, if we're going to like an NFL football comparison with like defensive backs, he is that ball hawk, interception heavy guy. He is, what year would that have been? 2019, I want to say. He is maybe 2020. He is 2020 Trayvon Diggs, right? If I got the year wrong, please forgive me. Deron Bland from a couple of seasons ago, right? You get my point where he is racking up the steals. He is the stocks guy on this team. He is awesome from a T side, but it sucks that the offense has never really panned out because defensively, man, he is a nightmare for opposing offenses. But like defensively, this bench is probably where the most optimism lies. Like Ryan Repair, good defender, really liked his instincts coming out. When he was entering the draft last year, I really liked that value for the Blazers last year. Chris Murray isn't an awful defender. I don't think he's fine. Robert Williams talked about his defensive ability. Jabari Walker, Shannon Sharp, I think still have a little bit more development to go defensively. Jabari Walker, maybe I'm selling him short. A little bit more optimistic about him. But you get back to this starting group here, and the biggest concern with the Blazers defense, at least with the starters, has to be the backcourt. The backcourt defensively is one of the worst in the league. And let's start off with Scoot Henderson because I have a little more upside. I have a little more optimism, if you want to say, with Scoot Henderson's defense. And the reason why is because, again, I don't think it's an ability thing. especially on ball, like there's still some upside on ball, I think, where he does a fine job at using his body and his athleticism to keep up and kind of stay in front. There is the occasional blow by defensively for Scoot where he almost like stands straight up sometimes in his defensive stance, and you can capitalize on that and potentially blow by him defensively. You want him to time that up a little bit. And in terms of just the screen navigation on ball, it's okay. Like, it's not great. But in terms of one-on-one, I'm guarding you in space, like, he's fine. He's fine. That's probably where the most optimism lies. Off ball, there are definitely, more frequent mishaps where he can get caught ball watching and lose his man when guarding the ball, guarding away from the ball, excuse me. He's at this weird stage where he doesn't do a good job of navigating screens on or off ball. But while like stating some of the stuff he doesn't do a good job at, like I said, like he does some stuff all right, I suppose, to the point where if Scoot Henderson is your worst defender in your starting five, then, there's worse situations to be in. I'm kind of similar with that with like Shaedon Sharpe. He's your worst defender. All right. That is not the case when we get to Anthony Simons, who is just quite possibly definitely among starters in the league. He is quite possibly the worst defensive guard in the entire league. Doesn't do a good job at guarding his space at all. I don't even know what it is, truthfully. Some of the time I think it's effort. A lot of the time is I just don't think he is a little, I don't want to use the word frail, but he is tiny, literally. And he is too small. Like, if it's a bigger guard, God forbid, is like even a Drew Holiday, who you don't think of as this massive self-created scorer, right? Like, you can bully him and get by him, and teams will just relentlessly hunt that Anthony Simons matchup defensively, and that puts the defense into unnecessary rotation, and that is definitely something you don't want if you are the Portland Trailblazers and you are Chauncey Billups. And that is definitely a problem that Chauncey's gonna have to work around. Now, the good news is, I think that this team has actually kind of done a fine job at building, a group around those two where it's okay. We have some stuff to work with here, and that goes to Deni Avdija. And Deni is, in my opinion, the best all-around defensive player right now on this team. And that might be a hot take. You guys let me know in the comments. I did go with him for my defense player of the year, though. So, spoiler for the interview with Danny. But, and the reason why I lean with this is, number one, the best thing about Deni Avdija's defensive game is just his versatility. His versatility defensively is so fun, where he's a more than capable weak side rim protector and helper. Great team defender. He can alter shots at the rim while still being able to navigate ball screens at a high level or off ball screens. Guard at the point of attack against some of the better wings and better, bigger guards in the league. I think why he's not an elite defender is, you can get by him. It's not like he is this ultra explosive athlete. Like some of the quicker players with high level burst and quick twitch ability can get by him and maybe get him out of his stance. And that's probably where, his more, underwhelming defensive plays might show up. But 90% of the time, because that is on the rarity, I feel, 80 to 90% of the time, and even the times where he does get beat, he has elite length and is able to use some of that lateral quickness to still affect shots at a high level. So 80% of the time, you're getting a rock solid, really, really good defender. But then what really takes this up from being like a good to a, great, which would be like what this is, right? Great defender. Then you have like the dark blue, which is elite, and then pink, which is, best in the league at this category or whatever, right? We haven't gotten anybody with that grade yet in this series. With Deni, and apologies for the grammar check there. That's on me. I think with Deni, he is legitimately one of the three best rebounding wings in all of basketball. It's like him, it's Jason Tatum, it's Tari Eason, and it's Jonathan Isaac. So 4, one of the 4 best defensive rebounders in the NBA. And that, you combine that, and that also really, really complements what Jeremy Grant does and maybe doesn't do on the defensive end as well. Because Jeremy Grant isn't a good rebounder, but you say, no, okay, cool. We know Jeremy Grant's not a good rebounder, so let's go get literally one of the 4 best defensive rebounding wings in all of basketball, who's also this really good team defender. There's also this really good, on-ball wing stopper, if you will, right? And then you got something there. And then Jeremy Grant, I feel like is the guy that I probably earned, like I gained a lot more respect for as a player throughout this breakdown series so far. Like, got the Wizards, got the Nets, you got the Blazers here at 28. Already done my research for the number 27 ranked team. I think Jeremy Grant's the guy that I look back on him after this series or after my evaluations. I'm like, man, he's a little bit better than I thought, because I think are definitely better than I think public perception, especially defensively with Jeremy Grant. Because defensively, he's probably not the same defensive player that he was earlier in his career. You hear that a lot, right? But with Jeremy Grant, I think that Jeremy Grant, for one, part of that is there's 2 big reasons I don't think get talked about enough. Number one, it's truly because his offensive role has increased one way or another. It just has increased. It has continued to increase throughout his career while just being on bad teams. And, at times it is lack of effort, but he's been, again, or a lack of elite effort. We'll go with that. But guys, he's been on the Portland Trailblazers. He was on the Pistons. He's been on bad NBA teams for a while now. So I'm going to give him some slack and say, like, look, throw him on the Lakers for an example. Throw him on the Mavericks for an example, where they're a clear contender. They're one of the 4 to 5 best teams in the Western Conference. And yeah, like Jeremy Grant I buy him getting back to being a really good defender, because it's not like it's a lack of ability or he's falling off athletically or anything like that. There are still more than enough scenarios or examples of Jeremy Grant guarding in space and guarding some of the best players on the planet, like guarding a Luka Doncic, guarding a Jason Tatum, a Kawhi Leonard, etc., right? He uses his physical frame really, really nicely, has great hands in the passing lanes or when guarding the ball as well, able to get some deflections. Again, maybe not the same guy, but if I'm a contender, I'm coughing up some assets to go after a Jeremy Grant, because I think, like we talked about offensively, super versatile offensive player, while at the same time being a legitimate, I think in terms of ability, being still a solid defender, and definitely has a role for, I think, an NBA defense. And then we got DeAndre Ayton, really nice, versatile defender. They can do a lot of different things for you. That last year was probably his best defensive season since the 21 Suns year, probably. I think there is still some more stuff he could get better. I think the full package as a rim protector, right? Like I said, I think Donovan Clingan is the best defensive big on this roster day one. But the versatility of a DeAndre Ayton, they'll switch him out of the perimeter and let him play out there. I really, really like the versatility he provides. That's legitimately a positive for this team as we get to kind of the strengths and weaknesses of this team. I think strength number 1 for this team, I think it is the wing and big defense. Like we'll just say front court. Their front court defense is a real strength of this team. You want to throw Matisse Thybulle in there in the wing category? Well, that even further proves my point. You got Matisse Thybulle, you got Tamari Kamara, you got Robert Williams, Donovan Clingan, Jeremy Grant, Denny Avdia, DeAndre Ayton. Name one of those players that's a bad defender. Name one of those players that, and I'm probably selling some of those players a little bit short, right? Playing on the low end of the spectrum there, right? So their front court defense in general, I think is a massive, real positive for this team. After that, I think just the youth movement in general, like they have a nice low core, I think, going forward. And I'm still going to consider Scoot. He is still the 3rd overall pick just a year ago. Scoot Henderson, Denny Avdia, Shaedon Sharpe, Donovan Clingan. Those guys by themselves, I think, make up a pretty solid core. And if Portland's really, really bad, then I think you look at next year's draft, you're like, oh man, we get to add the guy potentially to this core that we already really, really like. And then I think in general, their guard rotation I do really like. I like Scoot. I think Scoot has the opportunity to get better. Anthony Simons, Shaedon Sharpe, dynamic scoring threats, and Shaedon Sharpe again might be on the up and up this upcoming season. Going to some of the weaknesses, there is kind of this cloud I think hanging over Chauncey Billups. Like the uncertainty of head coach is definitely something that I am considering, and definitely a weakness I think with Portland. I think bench scoring is probably a weakness. Like, okay, Shaedon Sharpe is awesome, but Shaedon Sharpe does have some durability stuff you have to worry about here. I mean, his rookie year, to his credit, he played all 80 games. So you're hoping last season was just a, random, it was a fluke, right? But let's say Shaedon Sharpe has to miss 20 games. Okay, or even let's say Shaedon Sharpe is starting and in the scenario where Anthony Simons has to miss. Okay, where is that scoring coming from that bench? Because I don't trust anybody to come off that bench currently and microwave them some points. I look at that, and I think the guard defense is a massive concern on this team. Like I said, I think they did try to help mitigate that by the front court defense, but man, that backcourt scoring is really, really, really troublesome right now. And then I'm going to go with playmaking. Scoot still has a ways away. Anthony Simons is a fine playmaker, but Anthony Simons isn't that high leverage playmaker that you would typically want. Denny's fine, but right now you kind of got a bunch of guys like, okay, cool, they're solid, but you're missing that true alpha level playmaker. And then we're gonna add this. This is gonna be new addition to the series. We have our we're gonna look at some of the Vegas odds here for Portland. Portland, their over-under currently is set at 21.5 wins per FanDuel. Shout out to FanDuel. That is kind of a no bet. I guess I would go under there. For division winners, Portland in the Northwest, Portland's division winning odds are set at plus 50,000, which is crazy. Definitely not playing that one. And then the Western Conference, the Portland Trailblazers have the worst odds, also set at plus 50,000. So not that we're really going to play there, not feeling confident. Even the plus 21.5 wins, I don't really love. I think Portland wants to be bad, but I'm not confident playing any of those. But now let's get into a great interview with my guy, Danny Marang, again, co-host of the Jack Ramsey podcast, also a radio host. He does great stuff. Had a bunch of fun diving into this Blazers team, even more so. With that being said, let's get to that interview. All right, I want to welcome you all into our post-breakdown interview with my guy, Danny Marang. He's a Blazers fan, Lakers and Blazer fan coming together for a podcast to talk about the Blazers, man. Who would have thunk it? But Danny is the co-host or host of the Jack Ramsey podcast. They do a bunch of great stuff. Go check him out. Make sure I put all of his information down in the description below. Go follow him on X at Danny Marang. Danny, my man, how's it going? Thanks for stopping by.
This is always fun. It's the down period for basketball. I just spent the entire day on the radio talking about Big Ten football. So any excuse I can have to kind of deviate back towards basketball, I'm always going to find. So
you're a Chargers fan, right?
Yeah. I'm dyed in the wool USC. So Lakers fans are sitting here going, wait, USC? I'm from LA originally, for everybody who wonders. And yes, I went full sacrilegious and told the Lakers to go to hell. That's just how it works.
Kind of like me with football. I'm born and raised from Cincinnati, but I can't stand the Bengals. Like it's.
I mean, there's a reason for that. The Bengals were so bad for so long. Like all of my sports teams are with the exception of the Blazers and the Dodgers, are all LA teams. Like I grew up as a Raiders fan when the Raiders were in LA. That's how old I am.
Yeah.
And then obviously USC. So, but I got love for the Dodgers too. But Lakers, purple and gold, I got no love for y'all.
Well, Danny, Blazers coming in here from me, 28th in my power rankings. What is your gut reaction when you hear that?
Better than I think most. I've covered this team for 13 years.
Okay.
2024. 12. Yeah, this will be year 13. So 12 years. This will easily be they're like probably the worst that they'll be between last year and this year. just kind of where they are in their process. This is an organization that has missed the playoffs or been under 500, I think, eight or nine times in its existence in 54 years. They had the longest consecutive playoff run in North American sports history. So for them to be down there, it's very strange for Blazers fans. And everybody's like, well, you guys haven't won a title since 77. It's like, yeah, it's totally fair and fine. But also the team that Kobe and Shaq beat to go win an NBA title, who was that? That was the Blazers team. The team that the Bulls beat to win an NBA title, who was that? It was the Blazers. Like, you look at where they have been probably the second best team every generation at some point in time over the last 35, 40 years. So for them to end up 28th, it's probably shocking to a lot of Blazers fans, but the process and where they're at and how the league operates now, it makes sense. Like, what they're doing is specific because the Damian Lillard era, unfortunately, never got a chance to get going because the general manager, president at the time, Neil O'Shea, refused to make any particular moves that used real capital and allowed them to take a step further than they ever got. And because of that, they had to make a decision last year. Well, Damian Lillard made it for them by requesting the trade out. And that finally got them down a path where they weren't trying to live in both lanes.
Yeah.
And do not listen to what anybody says about, oh, they're frisky. They could maybe be a 30-win team. They are going to steer this thing off the cliff. It's going to be purposeful. Like, do not get it twisted. Like, they are going to be bad. Like, oh, they got Jeremy Grant, they got DeAndre Ayton, they traded for Denny Avdia, they got Anthony Simons. All those things are true. Jeremy Grant, I've seen Lakers fans who have said they don't want to trade for him because he's been injured. Let me go ahead and give you the air quotes, injured. Jeremy Grant hasn't played in the game since beyond March in the past 3 years because they've rested him. Because they've been chasing ping pong balls. Because it's Portland. You're the furthest geographical isolated city in the entire NBA. Players don't want to come here. You have a tax bracket that's not great. It's one of the highest tax rates. You're in one of the whitest cities in the entire NBA and one of the general whitest cities in the country. Your nightlife isn't great. If you're a 24-year-old black man, you don't want to come to Portland, Oregon. Those are all things they have to overcome. So what do they have to do? They have to tank. They have to go get that player. And this 2025 draft, you've got Cooper Flagg, you've got Ace Bailey, you've got Dylan Harper, you've got VJ Edgecombe. Like, you go down the list, you have got 5 certified holy crap dudes.
Yeah.
In that 28th spot, they probably rather you say 30th. Because that's where they're going to be. They're going to take this thing and they're going to work on development, and they're going to feature Scoot Henderson as many minutes as he can handle, and Diddy Avdia and Donovan Clingan. But come All-Star break, there's going to be 6 guys in this roster who you have no idea who they are, where they came from, or why they're playing basketball. And their sole purpose is to be bodies out on the floor so they can lose 18 consecutive games to end the season.
Yeah.
Because they need that guy. That's this simple, clearest path that I can paint for people that are trying to understand what the Blazers are and what they're doing. They need a cornerstone. And as much as they have good players, they don't have a guy that they can build a foundation off of. And that's what they're hoping to get from the 2025 draft.
There's a lot of directions that I could go after that. First off, so essentially what I'm hearing is, as a Laker fan, I should want to play the Blazers as many times as possible.
Oh, God, yes.
The trade deadline.
Absolutely. When that schedule release comes out, and so just so you know, schedule release is supposed to be August 15th. When that schedule release comes out here in roughly 3 weeks, you're going to look at that and you go, oh, the Lakers play the Blazers 3 times after the trade deadline? Ooh,
let's go.
That'll get you guys from the 10th seed to the 9th seed.
All right, there we go. There we go. I was waiting for it.
But like, you don't want to play the Blazers in the early season. If you're a team who's like, I want to have some cake wins on the back end. Like, if you're looking at schedules, you want to see the Blazers, you want to see the Wizards, you want to see the Nets, the Pistons, those are the teams you want to see on that back half, that post All-Star break schedule, because those teams, they are going to do the exact same thing. The Wembanyama sweepstakes, there was egregious tanking. The Blazers sat rookie Shaedon Sharpe against the Spurs in the second to last game of the season, or last game of the season. That's how egregious it got. Like, the Shaedon Sharpe was too good. They're like, nope, can't afford to play him. there's a chance of Victor Wembanyama on the line. We need to make sure that they lose this game.
It's going to get nasty.
The same thing is going to happen. You're going to have 4 Utah. Heaven forbid they trade Lauri Markkanen before the season because it could get real nasty. But you're going to see 5 teams, at least probably 6 and 7 post All-Star break, that they will be competing to see who can win the least.
Yeah.
And it's going to get nasty.
I'm glad you actually touched on the Dame piece earlier. So last season, I had the Blazers ranked at 30th. They were dead last for me last season after the Dame trade. And I really applauded them for the Dame trade. Not necessarily because of what they got back necessarily, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you can go back and forth about the value they got for Damian Lillard, but more or less because my biggest pet peeve with professional sports teams in general is we can do both, or we could be aimlessly mediocre and be, by NBA terms, win 35 games, or football terms, we could go 8-9 every year and be fine with that, right? Like, trading Damian Lillard, to your point, like, was the distinction. Like, no, we are going to be
tearing the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, we are going to be really effing bad. We're going to be bad. That for at least a couple of years. Then we're going to get to Scoot Henderson, but like, you got the 7th pick this year. You go get Donovan Clingan. Now the hope is, again, like, they're 28th for a reason. It's not like we're saying, hey, like, play in hopes if possible. No, like, we're gonna go be bad again. Yeah. Go get, like you said, a Cooper Flagg, a VJ Edgecombe, a Ace Bailey. Like, that's that direction, or just that type of thinking, I think, is how all mediocre teams, because if we're being honest, that's what the Blazers probably would have been if they had brought that same team back, but just add Dame. Like, they would have been like the 11th seed.
40 wins.
Yeah, 40 wins. I think that, like, barely misses the play-ins, like, and you're at the 12th pick or something.
And what are you doing? You're not doing anything for your draft capital. You're not doing anything for generating a team going forward. You're not a building block. It's purgatory.
Yeah.
And to be honest, Dame didn't want to be a part of that anymore. Like, I've covered Dame since his rookie year. Like, it sounds weird. Dame's a friend. Like, talking to him and going through that whole process with him, and the trade demand and how that all went, he didn't want to leave Portland. Mm-hmm. Like, I will unabashedly, this is home for him, and it hurt him because he wanted to both win and be here, but he knew that couldn't happen. The only way that could have happened, where you could thread that needle, is if the Blazers win the lottery now 2 years ago, and they get Wembanyama.
They get Wemby.
That is, and then
scratch everything.
Yeah, Dame stays. I'm telling you right now, unequivocally, Dame does not ask out. I know that for a fact. He would not ask out, but that's an alternate universe. You're in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's a different Earth, right?
Yeah.
Look, I would have loved to have seen it, because Wemby would have been the best player that Dame ever played with. I mean, LaMarcus Aldridge is the best player that Dame has ever played with. You can say Carmelo, it's like that's a ghost of Carmelo. But like, Dame never had that guy, and it's unfortunate, but now he does in Giannis, and I couldn't be happier for him ending up there. But the Blazers, they made that decision, and whether you don't say Dave made it for them, whatever it is, they went down a path now where they know that they're taking the shortcut through hell. And in order to get better, in order to figure things out, they have to get that foundational piece. That's why they take a swing on a Shaedon Sharpe. That's why they take a swing on air quotes on Scoot Henderson. And that's why they went after Donovan Clingan in the draft this year. They're as much as you want to say, oh, Donovan Clingan is a swing. I think the way the NBA is kind of tilting back more towards big men and the potential upside that he shows, I think it is. And if you take a look at kind of how they're shaping up, Scoot, Shaedon, Clingan, Avdia, what's missing? Well, it's the foundational guy, whether it's Cooper, whether it's Ace. And I think that's kind of what they're hoping, is it's one of those wing types that, the apex wings that make sense. But if Scoot ends up not being the guy, and, they draft Edgecombe or Harper, and he's the foundational piece, they're just trying to get things loosely ready around that, but they haven't committed to anything because they can't.
Yeah. Let's get to talking about this current version of the Blazers and what we can expect going forward. I have to start off with Chauncey, who I have my own opinions on. You're the expert, but I completely expected them to fire him at the end of last season. I understand why they kept him around, but what are your thoughts on Chauncey Billups as a coach in general, and do you think he lasts after this upcoming season?
So personally, I really like Chauncey as a person. I grew up, Andre Miller and Chauncey were two of my favorite players.
Yep.
I'm a 5'10" boxy point guard who's not that bursty.
Yep.
played a lot of mid post point guard in my life, and so those
Yep.
two guys were guys that I was like, I kind of modeled my game after.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a little bit weird when he got here. I'm like, oh man, I used to watch this guy, all the
Every
time,
day.
every day, And so as a person, I love him, and the players, they love him. Does he have shortcomings as a coach? Yes. Do I think tactically he could be better with things? Yes. I think the personnel he's also had to work with, not great at times. I also think he signed up to coach a more veteran team. When he first came here, when Neil O'Shea hired him, he was hired to coach a team that featured Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, Norm Powell, Robert Covington, Yusuf Nurkic. You could say it's a poor fit, and I would agree with you as far as the personnel groupings, but he did not sign up to develop young guys. But he embraced the suck, as it were. And I think the reason they didn't get rid of him is twofold. One, the kids love him. They respect him and they play hard. Go back and don't do this. This is a figure of speech because it's painful. But if you go back and watch those games last year, even when they're getting their teeth kicked in, they're still playing hard.
They play hard.
And that is, if you have been in the NBA locker room day to day, it is not easy to do that. It is like it is very easy to let go of that rope and be like, I got something else to deal with. And he has got those guys playing hard. Now, the talent isn't there, but those guys play hard for him, and he coaches them hard. Do I wish they would do some things differently? Yes. Do I wish that they would change things up tactically and not be so loose with certain things and be less stringent on others? Yes. But I also think Chauncey has gotten better as a coach. The other part of this is the reason they didn't get rid of him. Who is going to come in here and coach a team that everyone knows is actively tanking? Nobody wants to be Brett Brown. And Chauncey's going to take his couple $1 million on this last year of his deal and take it on the chin, because that's the deal. And because everyone's like, well, what if you're going to get rid of him? Why not get rid of him? Because you don't know what coach you need yet. If you land Ace Bailey, you need a different coach than if you land Cooper Flagg. I genuinely believe that. You need to understand who it is that you're building your franchise with, and you need to find a coach that makes sense for that player. And if you go out and you're like, we're going to go get this coach, and then you go draft a player and it just doesn't make sense, why did you go hire that coach? Yeah. You have to know kind of the team that you're going to be building, what it's going to be based on, who it's going to be based on, to know the coach. I think Darvin Ham's a perfect example.
Mm-hmm.
Darvin Ham, for that,
for a Blazer fan, he's really locked in on Lakers style. I'm joking. Go ahead.
But you know what I mean? Like there's a difference for. I mean, Frank Vogel. How many Lakers fans right now would kill to have Frank Vogel back? Right? Like, it was like, oh, Frank had his shortcomings. Like, did he? Or did you not understand the levers that he was pulling? And I think that's the thing that the Blazers are and both Chauncey Billups are looking at. Like, Chauncey can go learn, continue to grow as a coach guys that he likes, and help develop them. Because I think I very strongly believe that he loves these guys and he wants to see them do well. Like, he genuinely cares about them as young men, right? The other part of this is Chauncey's getting paid. It's like, it's a lot easier to find a job when you got a job. And if you go out there and you do what you're supposed to do and you figure stuff out, maybe there's an opportunity at the end of this. Hell, maybe the Blazers change their mind and he goes from being a lame duck candidate to getting his contract extended. I don't know. But I think for 1 year, everybody kind of knows what the deal is going to be.
Yeah. Let's move on to your number 3 overall pick in the 2023 NBA draft. Who's a guy that I was pounding the table for Scoot so hard, to the point to where he was my number 2 prospect on my board that year, to the point where I shredded the Charlotte Hornets for not taking Scoot. I thought, because the argument leading up to the draft was, well, he's another guard. Like, do you really want the next Melo? My point was like, my guys, you need two like lead ball handlers in general anyway. Like if it's a wing and a guard, or if it's two guard, whatever, you need two of those. And
if you got one at 6'7", you're in a good spot already.
You're in a fine spot, right? Yeah. So I shredded the Hornets for it, and then Brandon Miller goes out to CZS, and I look like an idiot. It's not like I didn't like Brandon Miller. I thought Scoot was a whole tier better than Brandon Miller. And then Scoot has the CZL last year, and I think today or yesterday in preparation for this, I obviously in the series went back and looked at some more film. And I'm curious, what are your thoughts? I'm curious about Scoot year one, because it definitely was rough at times. But like, do you see like the light at the end of the tunnel with Scoot, or do you think he's like a ways away?
So when they drafted Scoot, I had to temper expectations among the fan base. In the history of the NBA, and this it's a little shorter because it's only been since 96 that teenagers can be drafted, and even then that it disappeared for a little bit. There have been 24 teenage point guards drafted. All of them except for 3: LaMelo Ball, Kyrie Irving, Stephon Marbury, have been unmitigated dumpster fires in their rookie years. And even then, Kai, Steph, and
Melo,
thank you, were not great. Like the saving graces for LaMelo was that his playmaking was unreal. Like LaMelo is one of the 5 best passers in the NBA right now today. That was the thing that we were like, oh yeah, Kai is one of the best finishers and shooters we've ever seen. And Stephon Marbury might be one of like the 10 quickest guards we've seen in modern basketball.
Yeah.
So they each had this like tangible thing where you're like, yep, I get it. The problem with Scoot was, and I hate ragging on it, G League Ignite has been a detrimental process to every single NBA prospect that it has had.
It's been crazy. Like
it has held back Jalen Green, Scoot Henderson, Modest Buzelis, Ron Henderson, Ron Holland, Jonathan Kuminga, you name it. Every single NBA prospect that has come through there is worse off for having gone through it. And I know guys that have worked there, and it's not a shot at their work. I just don't think the idea and the process and what it actually was versus what they wanted it to be never really came together.
Yeah,
because everybody wants Scoot fry G League teams that have 6'8" centers. And the context isn't there that he's not finishing around 7-footers. That he's not, that the space that he's operating in is different than what it is in the NBA. And right out of the gate, his shooting was a problem. And I knew that, and I was like, I think his mechanics, I'd watched a ton of tape on him, and I'm like, I think his mechanics, I think he can get to be like a 36% three-point shooter. Like, I think he can be there's nothing in his, shooter. There's nothing Russell Westbrookian about his jumper where you're just like, that's broken. You just can't fix it. Sorry. You know what I mean? Like,
whoops.
Yeah. It's like his jumper's fine. Is it elite? No. But do I think it can get to the level where like he can knock down 36% of his threes on like 4+ threes a game? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty easy thing. My bigger issue is a 2-part. One, he was an incredibly terrible finisher around the rim.
Yes.
Which doesn't make any sense for a guy that is so strong. I mean, he came in here at 19 years old and he looked like a running back. And I'm like, put a shoulder into a guy and figure out your footwork, dog. Like that is your homework for the rest of the year.
It was weird, man. Like I remember I went back and like I said, I was like looking at some Blazers tape yesterday and this morning. I was like, he like can't finish through contact at all right now,
which doesn't make any sense because it's not fake muscle. You know what I mean? Like
he's legit huge. He's huge
and he's strong. Like he's legitimately strong. And I've seen him do stuff, and I'm just like, whoa, that he is. I've seen him move guys. It's an understanding of what to do, how to do, when to do it kind of situation. Because it's not basketball IQ excuses him or paints him as dumb. He's not dumb. He's got great feel. The thing is, there so much needs to be tightened around his game.
Yeah.
Because first he was sold as like Derrick Rose or Russell Westbrook as an athlete. He's not that athlete.
He's not that. Like Jaden Ivey is a better, like
Yes.
quicker, more fluid athlete if we're going that
Scoot
direction.
is very strong, and he's got a great first step. And if you give him a runway, he will punch on you.
Yeah.
He is not like – there's two different – like if you want to talk about an athlete on the Blazers, Shaedon Sharpe.
Yes.
Oh, there we go. There's my dogs. Shaedon Sharpe is a one-step 40-plus inch vertical where you're just like, oh my God.
You give him any space, it's over.
It's like, oh, that's just a terrorist in the sky.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll stop, for the love of God. Sorry.
You're good.
This is what happens when my wife's not home. But his ability to finish is the thing. He's working with Steph Curry's trainer this offseason to get his finishing right. Excuse me. There we go. He's going to be working on his finishing. It's something he's told me he's going to work on. Is he wants to get, not even just his finishing, but getting his footwork right.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is going to sound sacrilegious. And like I'm talking down the guy, and I don't want it to be that. But I've talked to evaluators in the league who are like, if he doesn't figure out something, whether it's shooting or finishing, he's going to be Eric Bledsoe.
Yeah. It's like he's somehow a worse finisher than Trae Young right now, which again makes no sense.
No. And the way he works and how hard he works, I have confidence that he will develop.
Yeah.
How much? I'm just not certain. And that's the thing. The other part of this is his passing. He has got hands like dinner plates, and he can pass. He can pick that thing up off of a live dribble and just fire it. Right hand, left hand, overhand, underhand.
Doesn't matter.
No, his diversity of passing is incredibly impressive. The problem is, I want to say it was 60% of his turnovers this past year were bad passes.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know. I have to go through this as part of my summer research. Is seeing how many of those were bad passes, like mistargeting, like outside catch radius kind of deals, or how many of those were, I thought that guy was going to be there and he wasn't. Because those are two different things.
It's definitely a healthy mixture of both, right? Like, you'll see it within the same game. Like there's a play I want to say against Golden State late in the year that I have like exactly in my mind right now. It's like an empty side ball screen on the left side, and I will say this is to his credit. I love the two-man chemistry he has with Aiden. It was really fun to kind of watch.
It was
that.
really popping at the end. Well, once they understood the spacing and timing, DA started, I think the final 3 months of the season, DA was like 22 and 12 on like 64% from the field. Like it was like, there's a little something there.
Yeah. And I mean, just imagine that with Klingon, because I think Klingon's one of his best traits, just the screening, his feel, and then we'll get to Klingon later. But I think with Scoot, it's almost like it's more of like I didn't see that guy and I didn't know where to go with, like kind of what you said with the finish. It's like, okay, when do I go with this particular move? Like in the play I'm thinking of, and Sean, please add the clip right here. I'm saying, bro, when I'm watching the film, I'm like, bro, floater, go all the way to the rim, get fouled something, and say he tries to hit that little like pocket pass against ice or whatever. And I think Steph gets a hand to pass you later on the opposite side. It's a turnover. I think that's really what it is. And that's why, and I'm curious your thoughts about this with Scoot. I said in the breakdown of the roster, I was like, I didn't give Scoot a green arrow up, meaning like he's trending upwards yet, only because I think that's not going to be this year. I think we're a year away where it's like, okay,
he's still a kid.
He's still a kid. And also like your point about the G League Ignite. Look how long it took Jalen Green. Look how long it took. Like Kuminga's a little bit different. I think Kuminga figured it out a little bit earlier than Jalen did, for example. But still,
like Holland and Buzelis, like I wouldn't touch them this year. Like I would, like if you look at them, I think their seasons, like, and they're not throwaway.
Yeah.
But I think if you're like, oh no, I'm really excited for them, I would hold back a lot of reservation about performances for them this season. You know what I mean? Like it's just there's. The G League is, and I don't want to denigrate the G League, but it's, if you talk to anybody who's played there for any period of time, they throw the ball out. There's, 120 possessions. Yeah, it's 120 possessions a game. I saw somebody say, well, Ron Holland averaged 24 a game if they Ignite. I'm like, yeah, I hope so. There's 120 possessions for each team a game. Like what? Yeah, he better.
Yeah.
Like, somebody's got to, like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, but at the
You got
same
all
time,
these possessions.
yeah, it's like let's slow our our roll on this stuff. But I think you're right. He's not trending up yet. But I think he's above water, and I
Yeah.
think that's the thing is if Anthony Simons is on this team on opening night, which as of right now I believe that's going to be the case. I don't think Scoot is going to start. Very, very, very strongly believe it will be Anthony Simons, Shaden Sharp, Denny Avdia, Jeremy Grant, DeAndre Ayton, and then Scoot will get the 6-man role. Without Malcolm Brogdon, you can swap Ant, Shaden, Scoot, and all of them can play 30 minutes easily.
Yeah.
With Malcolm Brogdon, that was much more difficult. They moved their minutes crunch from the point guard position or the guard position to the wing position, which is a little bit easier to mitigate. But he came out last year in those first 5 games, and he was terrible.
Yeah.
He was unplayable. He was not ready. Russell Westbrook is kind of his idol as a basketball player, and you can watch in that first game because they opened up with the Clippers. There's a photograph after Scoot has had the ball stolen from him. Russ goes out and dunks it, and in the background, 15 feet, 12 feet behind, you see Scoot looking up in the air, smiling. Because the moment was just too big for him. And that's not a shot at the kid. He was 19.
Yeah.
He's Braun has skewed people's brains
about
to what 19-year-olds are supposed to be and how they're supposed to be wired. And it's like, no. Late in the season, we're waiting for Scoot to get dressed to do media availability in the locker room. And he just starts singing a kid's song. And I look at him, I'm like,
bro starts singing Party in the USA in the locker room.
Yeah, I just looked at him and went, what the hell, Scoot? And he just looks at me, he's like, what? It slaps. And I was just like, it just dawned on me. I'm like, that's right. You're literally a child. Like, you're 19. You're like, it was one of those things where it was just like, I forget how young you really are, and it's like, my favorite thing about the NBA is watching young players put it together, like developing and figuring it out. Like when that switch flips, it's one of the coolest things to me in the league. Like in sports,
especially if you can catch it in real time. Like if you're watching that game, like, like
that one game that they have, Anthony Simons had at the end of his rookie year, he had 37 against the Kings. And I have been telling everybody, I'm telling you, I know he looks like a rail thin little 18-year-old kid. The kid can shoot the living hell out of the ball. He did nothing the whole season. Everybody's like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm telling you. And now to kind of watch it back now, 6 years, you're like, yeah, the kid could pretty clearly shoot. But as far as Scoot goes, he started to have some of those games towards the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what you're
the Charlotte game at Charlotte is one that pops out.
And I think everybody looks at the big scoring games. I don't look at those. I look at the ball control games, not even the assist games. Like when I go back and I watch
the low turnover games,
low turnover, ball control,
good efficiency,
running the offense. Just, you could tell comfort.
Yeah.
Because the skills will take over when the comfort is there. The problem is that sometimes it takes longer for guys to become comfortable. And I think guys that are playing the 1 and guys that are playing the 5 have the longest roads to get to that level of comfort.
Yeah, that's a great breakdown. This is obviously a ton of fun. Let's keep the momentum train going, if you will. You brought up Anthony Simons in the roster breakdown, and we're going to talk about Jeremy Grant too, kind of in the same token. I said Anthony Simons as a player. This has nothing to do with the trade talk yet. As a player offensively, because Lord knows like the unspeakable things defensively. Offensively, I said Anthony Simons is a fringe all-star caliber talent offensively. Just the shooting. He's capable enough of a playmaker. The versatility in which he can score. Like obviously we know he's a flamethrower. He has like really good like pace and just control when operating under ball screens. Like he's one of my more favorite offensive like just scorers to watch.
If you look at his game, it's patterned after Dame's. And there's been videos that have been put together that show their footwork. It's very similar. It doesn't look like Dame's. It is Dame's because he trains with Dame and he trains with Phil Beckner. They have the same trainer. They work together in the offseason. I've talked to Dame and Ant about this a ton over the years. And if you watch his footwork, it is Dame's footwork. That step back to the left 3.
Yep. And I'm glad I'm not tripping.
No, it is the exact same footwork.
Yeah,
And
I watched him do a ball screen where he like snaked it, and then he gets that step back. I'm like, huh?
Snap, pop, pop. Yep.
I've seen that before.
And the other thing that makes it look similar is they both release it like a 3/4 shot.
Yes.
They don't release high, which is funny because Dame is built like a Mack truck. Like he's just built. He's 212, 210 pounds.
Yeah.
He's strong. Looks like a tailback. Ant cannot stay over 200 pounds. Like he's consistently like 198. And I bust his balls about it all the time. Like, you eat a cheeseburger today, you get over 200, but the ease of which that they both can shoot. I mean, it's a flick of the wrist from 30 feet. I have watched these guys go through pregame routines for years.
Yeah.
And Steph does not shoot a more effortless ball than Dame or Ant does from 30 feet. It is Steph. You can see him kind of gear up for it.
Yeah.
Dame and Ant, they both they don't change. You don't notice any change in their mechanics, whether they're shooting at 12 feet or 30 feet. And
it's the same shot.
It's
literally
insane. And you can't tell. And you're like, oh my God. And the thing about Ant offensively is he can go right, he can go left. If you go under a screen on Anthony Simons, you were asking to get a 3 hung up on you.
Yeah.
Like he's that lethal of a shooter. And people like, well, no, he's that capable of a shooter.
He's that good.
You look at his numbers in the pick and roll, with the exception of this past year, he was operating in like the 80th plus 85th percentile.
Yeah.
Like the man can get buckets on every level. And then when he gets hot, maybe 5 players in the league get hotter than he does in a quarter. I mean, the number of times where he's got 20-point quarters like that, and you're like, oh God, he had 3 points coming into that quarter. What happened? Offensively, only Luka was blitzed more last year. Now, there's some underlying stuff to that because nobody else in the Blazers was capable of creating problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also, those same things popped up before.
Yeah.
He was blitzed on an incredibly high level before because he is so capable, and you want the ball out of his hands because from 35 feet and in, he is a legitimate threat.
Yeah. He's legitimately incredible. With that being said, what do the Blazers do with him and specifically Jeremy Grant come trade deadline? Because it feels like you're at this collision course where it's like, all right, man, Anthony, we love you. Jeremy Grant, we have our feeling. I'm killing like that. One of the things I never understood the contract. It felt like they really, really like believed that they were going to like bring Dame back and run that back. No. So what's the contract for?
Always separate. So, okay. There's a couple things you have to remember. Remember we talked about earlier, Portland.
Right.
There's a Portland tax.
Yeah.
They're gonna on every contract, they're gonna pay anywhere between $5 and $10 million more.
Yeah.
Because not only is there like a Portland tax like being in Portland,
but
also like the actual taxes. Like the tax rate in Portland and Oregon is one of the highest flat tax rates of all of the NBA markets.
Yeah.
So you're taking a hit up front. And people say, well, LA. I'm like, yeah, go ahead and check the sponsorship opportunities for LA as opposed to Portland, guys.
Compared to Portland.
It's a little bit smaller. Ever so slightly.
You might notice it.
You might get a helicopter subsidized Clippers, those kind of situations. You can't really fudge those numbers in Portland all of a sudden. But Jeremy wanted to be here. There's also, and the Lakers are very familiar with this, the clutch factor.
Yeah.
The Blazers have good relationships with Clutch. Yusuf Nurkic is a Clutch client. Cam Reddish came through. Joe Cronin, the Trailblazers general manager, had a contract negotiated by a Clutch agent. Like there have been a lot of Clutch adjacent moves in Portland. Now, Jeremy was not originally brought in as a member of Clutch.
Yeah.
His agency was bought out and his agent was rolled into Clutch, but I think that was an understanding kind of how things were going to go.
Yeah.
But they love Jeremy, and Jeremy loves being here. You got to remember, Jeremy had been here before. His dad played here. And so he was familiar with, I think Jeremy was technically born here. He's comfortable here. He had a kid here. Like he's in no hurry to go anywhere. So getting the contract, and everyone's like, oh, they paid him so much. I did a straw poll at Summer League, among executive scouts, media folks,
Yeah.
very unprofessional. What do you think? And I said, okay, would you rather have Jeremy Grant on his contract right now, or Brandon Ingram at 48 to 50 million? Every single one of them took Jeremy Grant.
Jeremy Grant.
Okay, so can we stop bitching about the contract? you know what I mean? Like in the grand scheme of things, like you can say, "Oh, Bi's better." Is he that much better?
Because that's the question
that's
you have to ask
yourself, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like, and to most people, no.
Yeah.
Like, if you want somebody who's a little bit better on the ball, sure. But is it that much better? No.
Yeah.
And so you look at that situation, it's like Jeremy Grant's contract, when even in the old years, number one, his game's going to age. He shoots the ball incredibly well now. He's
really versatile offensive player.
Yes. And everyone's like, well, he doesn't rebound. I'm like, well, he never rebounded. So, like, he's not going to now rebound less.
We're just complaining about stuff in this war.
You know what I mean? It's like, here's the other part. Run the numbers on how many guys in the NBA are 6'8", take volume threes, and shoot better than 38%.
Yeah.
I can tell you the number off the top of my head if it's less than 10.
Mm-hmm.
And they include guys like Luka and Lowry and Tatum. And like you start looking at the list like, oh, that's weird. Every one of those guys is like an all-star, all NBA. Huh. And Jeremy's contract is the cheapest of all of them except for Lowry, who's about to get paid an absolute truckload. So like this whole idea of like Jeremy's like, oh, he's so overpaid. The second he signed that deal, I was on the radio going, in a year, it's going to look fine. In 2 years, it's going to look good. In 3 years, you're going to go, he's making a little bit more than your average starter. Because in 5 to 7 years, you're going to see guys making $85 million a year.
You're going to have the 27th best starting point guard in the league making $23 million.
Yeah. I mean, Victor Wembanyama's, when he's eligible for his Supermax, it's going to be like $107 to $111 million a year.
Yeah.
Like, think about that for a second.
That'll be the third contract, right?
He's going into his year 10 contract. His his
rookie extension. Yeah.
True Supermax.
Yeah.
Like the one that the owners go, oh, I hate this one because they got to put money into escrow and it gets real weird then.
Shit.
Yeah, right? But like the whole idea of Jeremy being this expensive contract or this burden, I'm telling you unequivocally, straight from the front office and straight from Jeremy Grant. They are happy he's here. He is happy he's here. They both are happy in the relationship. They both are open to a move if it makes sense for both parties.
Okay.
That is where they are. Jeremy is not like JG is one of the chillest guys in the entire NBA. I love talking to him. He's very open and honest and will tell you, if you got a relationship with him, he'll tell you exactly what he feels about things. Mm-hmm. And he has just said basically, look, I'm happy here, but if I can get to a better situation where I'm winning and I can be a contributor, of course I'm going to be open to it. But he's not ringing the bell of like, get me out of here, causing problems, because he's happy. He just had, like I said, he just had a kid. He's got another one on the way. He is stone cold chilling. And the contract for him is like, and the Blazers is totally fine, because if you look at this Blazers roster right now,
somebody got to go somewhere.
Yeah. And like, everyone's like, well, they could use that on bad contracts. I'm like, or they could just have a good player and trade it for good assets down the road. Like that's still an option, guys.
Yeah. So if you had to put a percentage on Jeremy Grant and Anthony Simons being on the team post-trade deadline, what would it be?
It would be higher for Jeremy, because I think what's going to end up happening is, unless somebody pops up and gives away 2 first-round picks, wink, wink, nod, nod, Lakers, I don't think Jeremy is going to get moved before the season starts.
Yeah.
But because of the new CBA, because of how prohibitive windows are, and I think owners and executives are going to realize that if you have a legitimate chance, you cash in. You worry about cashing out later, because you saw what the Mavericks did at the trade deadline and look at the run that they got. Now, if you build your team like, well, maybe that becomes problematic. But if you're a team out there and you're going, what is the thing that wins titles? Well, it's 6'7", 6'8" wings and a bunch of other dudes. Oh, hey, the Blazers have a spare one of those that also is an incredibly good 3-point shooter and positionally versatile while being a good defender. I wonder if that works in the playoffs.
I think he's starting to get a little underrated defensively. Like, he doesn't do it he doesn't do it at the consistency that maybe he did, but like the moments are like, oh wait, oh damn, this guy's You're in Portland. You're on a bad team.
Like it's like everybody's like, well, you should give 100. Like, look, man, like what you should do and what reality is are two different things. And I'm not going to bust Jeremy for that. Like going all out for 82 on its own is difficult. Doing that on a bad team is very difficult. Okay.
Yeah.
But if all of a sudden a team gets there and goes, we can add Jeremy Grant for a couple draft picks and some salary, like.
Yeah, chance to win a title this year.
Yeah, like you know what I mean. Like let's just say that the Mavs season they just had was this season right now.
Yep.
And they're coming to the trade deadline and they're like, we can get Jeremy Grant, and they had 2 first-round picks and some money to send off. Let's say it's Maxi Kleber and whatever.
Tim Hardaway Jr. or whatever.
Yes, there you go. Those 2 guys, you put them together.
2 firsts.
And you're telling me that the Mavs be like, no, we can't do that.
Yeah.
No, they're gonna go. Shit, we could put Jeremy Grant with
Luka,
with Luka and Kyrie,
Derek Lively.
Yeah, you're like, and all of a sudden you're like, yeah, okay. I think that's the kind of thing that both Jeremy and the Blazers are looking at.
Okay,
like let's see what a team like, and if somebody wants to give us what we want right now for him, great. And like we'll work. One thing the Blazers have done, and people are like, well, they didn't send Dame to Miami. No, you're right. They sent him to play with his literal number 1 player in the NBA. For 10 years, the one player Dame always told me he wanted to play with, Giannis, who would be the best player to pair him with, Giannis. Yeah. They didn't send Dame to purgatory. They sent him to a place where he has a legitimate chance to win a title.
It's not like they sent him to Charlotte or something, or Detroit.
And they did the same thing with CJ McCollum. And they did the same thing with Norm Powell and Robert Covington. They work with guys to get them to a good landing spot, and they get a deal in return.
Yeah.
Jeremy has clutch ties. The Lakers and the Blazers have talked. It's like it's been reported by many people. I'll tell you, I'm reporting it. They have talked.
Breaking news. Here on the Sports Podcast.
Yeah, there you go. Everybody's like, oh, no, they have.
Yeah.
And if the Lakers were willing to give up 2 1s, the deal would probably be done. That's where that's at.
I agree.
But the flip side of this is Jeremy would also be open to that because guess what? He's a clutch guy and he's friends with Braun.
Yeah.
These guys all talk because they all play on the Olympic team together.
Yeah.
Like, I remember Jeremy was on that 2022 Tokyo team.
Mm-hmm.
That's where all these plans are made.
Yeah.
So,
hey.
But like percentage wise, I'd say it's because trades are so unlikely. I'd say it's a 20% chance. Trades are always more unlikely than they are likely. 20% is a big number. Anthony, I don't think he would be traded in season.
Okay.
I think if they move him, it'll be number 1, Ant saying I'd like to go.
Yeah.
Because Joe Cronin was the scout when Anthony was drafted. That was his scout.
Mm-hmm.
He's got real love for Anthony. He's not just going to be like, oh yeah, no, we'll get you out of here. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like he's not just going to give him up. And so he would probably want to take his time and find a good landing spot for him and one that got them back something they wanted. And I just don't know how many teams are like, we want a flamethrowing guard at the deadline.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's a couple of more players that we have to get to. We're going to wrap up superlatives. Yeah. We have not talked Deni Avdija trade. We'll tie this into like the draft conversation. Yeah. I saw your face light up. I love Deni Avdija.
Love Deni.
Last, I want to say it was 28 games of the season. He averaged like 19 points, 9 boards, 52% shooting. Yeah. He's awesome. What were your thoughts on the I love the idea to go make that trade, go get him. He's that contract. I'm sure you've like looked at it a billion times.
I've called it the best non-rookie scale contract in the entire NBA.
I probably agree. It's nuts.
I've had 2 general managers text me and tell me that yes, it is. They believe it to be the best non-rookie scale contract in the entire league. Not only is it like a low dollar amount, it is a descending contract. It starts at I think 16 and ends at like 11.5.
Yeah, this is your one of that deal too.
His contract goes down as the salary cap goes up.
And as his like growth curve is going, like he's oh man.
Wendell Carter Jr. had this basically the same deal. He's on the last year of that deal now.
Yep.
I actually have to believe it's almost the exact same deal.
Mm-hmm.
It might have been like 44 as opposed to 40, or 54 as opposed to 44.
Yeah.
But I love Deni as a player. I didn't, and I think most of the NBA did not know he was available.
Yeah.
doing some research and making some phone calls, the Blazers tried to trade for Denny at the trade deadline this past year. But because of where the Blazers draft position was and where that Warriors pick was or wasn't at the time, because remember the Warriors sucked something fierce, and then all of a sudden they started winning. You're like, well, is that a lottery pick? Is it not? Kind of a situation. The Blazers didn't want to give up what could be a potential lottery pick. If it ends up
8th.
Yeah, it's like, well, no, we don't want to give that up. Even in a bad draft, it's like still it's more tangible asset. Yeah. So once they knew where it was, they had negotiations again with the Wizards, and the Wizards saw that a potential for Bub Carrington to be there, and so they did that along with Malcolm Brogdon, and then the swap on the middle of the three swaps they have in 2029. And they got a guy who not only is on a great contract, but I think might be the best rebounding wing in the NBA. The last time I looked, in fact, let me pull that back up. I believe he's in like the 90th percentile.
Like off the top of my head, it's like wings like him and Tatum.
Like 93rd percentile in defensive rebounding.
Yeah, it's like
according to Cleaning Glass. So
off the top of my head,
yeah,
who would be above him?
Let's see. I can actually pull up the list. So Jonathan Isaac, Tari Eason, Jason Tatum. Those are the literal only players above him. Of qualified players. That
makes sense.
And so you've got a lunatic in Tari Eason, a lunatic in Jonathan Isaac, and then Jason Tatum, who's 6'10". So
freak athlete too.
Yeah, like you know what I mean? Like it's like, yeah, no. So that kind of covers for the Jeremy Grant rebounding shortage, not only in the immediacy, but also you now have a strong rebounding wing to build with, but you also have a plus playmaker. Mike Schmitz, who's the assistant general manager of the Trailblazers. If you ever want to know what Mike Schmitz thinks about a player that the Blazers trade for or draft, just Google that player's name and Mike Schmitz's Twitter handle. And if it's been in the past 5 years, you'll find something. And going back to that draft, he said that he thinks that Denny has the chance to potentially be the best player in that draft. And that is a draft that featured Ant Edwards. Okay. Now I think that's a little bit hyperbolic, but I also am much more inclined. Mike and I see very similarly, we like the same kind of prospects. We have a thing for very toolsy wings. And when they traded for Denny, I damn near crashed. I was driving down the road and I got the alert on the phone and I went, yo, because I was like, I was like, because it was number one, it was very quiet. Very quiet. Like
out of nowhere.
No. And that's how Joe Cronin and to be fair, the Wizards operate is very quiet. And that's why they got the deal done. And so I was shocked that they got that deal because one, it was so quiet. Two, because it was Denny. Because I had actually checked in with a source on Denny's availability. I want to say about a week before that, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm not sure where the Wizards are with that. I don't think that they would consider really moving him right now." And I go, "What do you think it would cost?" He goes, "To be honest, probably Anthony Simons and maybe something else." And I was like, "That seems a little steep."
Yeah,
seems a little steep, but like, okay, thanks for giving me a heads up. And to have that happen like less than a week later, I was like, oh my God. And then it was like, oh, it was an overpay. And I'm like, guys, they gave up the 14th pick in this draft. And this, again, I love Bub Carrington, but this draft it's different.
It's not the 14th pick in last year's draft or next year's draft
or any other draft. But they're like, well, they gave up a pick in 2029. I'm like, yeah, not the best one.
And
it's like, what's the one thing the Blazers have not had since Nicholas Batum? Is it a functional forward who can dribble, pass, shoot, and defend? Congratulations. You just got a 23-year-old one on an incredible contract.
Yeah.
Have fun. It was like,
I wasn't aware of the overpay conversation. I'm glad I missed that.
Yeah, that was a weird one. I was like, they're like, I'm like, yeah, they gave up valuable stuff for a very good young player under 25. Welcome to the modern NBA.
I know a lot of people don't want to do this. As I think the Wizards one was like the worst performing episode of the series, but like I implore you to go watch a Washington Wizards game that featured Denny Avdia. You're like, oh yeah, this guy's really good.
This is like, where's the hole in his game? He's not a great shooter. He's not a great.
He improved
playmaker.
last year.
Exactly. It's like, and again, this is something that I believe wholeheartedly. The biggest shortfall in the NBA, the hardest thing to acquire. It's not shooting with size. It's playmaking with size. It is the rarest commodity in the NBA. And Denny Avdia is a legitimate 6'9" wing who can put the ball down on the floor and create for himself and others on a live dribble.
And defend and rebound at a freaking high level.
Yeah. And it's like, but that one thing, that creation ability for himself and others at that size is such a rare commodity that to me, it was already worth it.
Yeah.
So that's where I sat on that.
Yeah, he's awesome, man. And then let's kind of like direct that into the 7th pick. And I thought I thought the Blazers, like, man, I just have a thing with the Hornets, man. The Hornets take Tadaslu, and I'm like, oh man, Donovan Clingan's here at 6. I think Portland's got the trade up. I'm saying this all draft now. I'm like, I know you like Mark Williams, Charlotte, but Donovan's right there. And they take Tadon effing Saloon or whatever, say that for the Hornets episode. And then the Blazers, I don't want to say lucked in, because I really thought like the Bulls are going to trade up. I thought, who they
got their guy. Like the Bulls wanted Modest all along. So when he fell, they were thrilled.
They were thrilled. Who was after y'all? San Antonio was at 8. It would have been
San Antonio was 8. They traded out Memphis.
They traded with Memphis.
Memphis wanted Donovan.
Yeah, I was like, ooh, maybe Memphis tries to trade. Yeah. I wholeheartedly thought that was going to happen. You guys get Donovan Clingan, one the better. I think I had him like 6 or 7. It was 7th actually. Right that in the middle, perfect value. My pro-com for him, I think pro-com's getting a little bit weird, so I try to do my best with them. But my pro-com for him was like diet Rudy Gobert. Like 80% of Rudy Gobert, but like with better feel and better playmaking ability.
Yeah, I went more shot blocking Steven Adams.
Okay. Yeah, that's probably a better one.
Because he wants to be a little bit more physical. And I think that's kind of the thing. And it's like, as much as Rudy gets killed for his offense, you throw it anywhere near the rim, he's going to finish.
He's catching it.
Donovan's not quite there yet. And I think, but defensively, so my whole thought process on Clingan was this. I wanted the Blazers, if they were going to use both picks, I wanted them to use number 7 on a wing prospect with upside.
So and we're talking 14, like Mattis. We're talking
Cody Williams.
Cody. Okay.
That's fair too. I love Cody. Cody was, and did he look good at Summer League?
Man, Cody's awesome. Quick side tangent. I thought people really like overlooked into some of the like post-injury play.
Yes.
Where it's like,
from the point he rolled his ankle, he was not even close to the same player.
But you look at the stretch before, like
the 18 games to start the season when he was incredibly effective. It was like, that's the player, guys.
Like, where were we overthinking? Shout out to Utah, but
they were thrilled to get him. My God,
I would be too.
they didn't think the second Detroit took Ron Holland, they're like, we're gonna get one. We're gonna get one.
One of them.
I'm still surprised Detroit didn't trade out because they could have gotten Ron Holland at 9. They 100% could have got Ron Holland at 9, and I don't know why they didn't. But that's neither here nor there. But Donovan, my question I was going back and forth to the Blazers front office leading up to the draft. Who do you like? And I like to play the game, and they'll ask, what do you think of this guy? And my thing with Donovan was like, I know he's a winner, and I know he can defend. But if you're talking about Donovan Clingan and Scoot Henderson, I don't know if that's going to do either of them a ton of good. Sure. And it's not necessarily about either player being bad. It's the inability of Scoot Henderson to shoot right now or to create that separation as a finisher, and Donovan's lack of polish offensively. You know what I mean? So that juxtaposition was a little interesting. And I was like, I don't really know how that's going to work. Defensively, I thought Donovan was going to be good. I did not think he was going to be this good. I was down, like I said, I was down at Summer League, and I sat on the baseline for his first 2 games, and you could see the game 1 against the Spurs players trying to figure it out. Like, okay, this guy's huge because he's legitimately 7'3". He's 9'7" standing reach, good feel, good IQ, good timing. he led summer league in blocks. He set the summer league record for blocks and blocks per game. And I think he got screwed out of probably like 4 blocks in total, where I saw him get a finger on the ball and I didn't see the box score change. I was like, he got a finger on that. Like,
yeah.
But you saw players be scared of him. You saw driving lanes close because they're like, and they just kind of U-turn back out. And the only guy who was willing to let him was Steph Castle. And he got Steph twice, one on a block, one he bought him up, and the third time he fouled him. But that's because Steph just spent the entire year going at him every day in practice at UConn.
Yeah.
Philadelphia, the only player that went at him was Ricky Council IV. And that's because Ricky, he doesn't have fear. That man's insane. And he tried to yam on Klingon like 3 different times. He got sent every time. But it was just like you're watching Klingon in real time, game after game after game, get smarter, faster, more efficient as a defender and control the paint. And it was like, oh, this guy can defend. And so going forward, I think they got a real one as a defender. I'm just not certain of where the offensive ceiling is at. And I think there's plenty of time to figure that out.
One quick note on the defense, and then we'll move on to some superlatives here to wrap things up. I think, you kind of touched on it there at the end. I think one of the things that Donovan Klingon did the most at UConn defensively that popped on tape instantly, you brought up in how he showed this off a little bit of Summer League, was I think there is a massive difference between rim protector and shot blocker. There's a massive difference. You can block shots and be a rim protector, but like shot blocker is Hassan Whiteside. Like that is
100%. Portland legend.
Rim protector, Rudy Gobert, Anthony Davis, Bam Adebayo. Like
they put fear in you.
They Victor Wembanyama, how dare I not say it? Like the rim protector. And I think the knowing when, where maybe on this possession, all I got to do is just stand right here.
Just get big.
Just be big. Be big. And not I have to put my hands up, but just be big, be long, and alter shots. Or all right, this time I'm gonna send this shit respectfully to the third row, and we're gonna set back up defensively outside out of bounds. Right? I think that, and you brought like the timing and just the IQ, like that.
He doesn't foul.
No, exactly. Like that day one is like I have him graded out. I can't give him like elite defensive grade day one, but damn, like if we're talking about Donovan Klingon, and there's a lot of really good defensive bigs, but if we're talking about Donovan Klingon at the end of this year, his rookie year, being like one of the 10, I'll probably go there, like 10 best defensive bigs.
It wouldn't surprise me.
It wouldn't surprise me because like the timing, the instincts, all that stuff is there.
And the biggest thing for me is he doesn't foul. Like that's the thing is like he averaged 4.3 blocks per game and averaged less than 3 fouls per game. And he was doing this in 26 minutes a night. Like he wasn't playing 34, and so, and you're playing in summer league where guys are just running at your chest the entire game.
Exactly.
Where you pick up fouls. Like that's what you do. And so for him to not foul while being a shot blocker, while being a rim protector, that was the thing that stood out. I was sitting next to Kyle Neubeck, who covers the 76ers. And I was like, are you seeing this too? He's like, yeah, they're turning away from him.
Yeah.
Like you could feel it. Cause that's one of the cool things about summer league is you sit on the floor right there and you can feel the pace, the style of the game, the physicality of the game. And you're sitting there and you can feel
you're like, oh,
defensive gravity, like pushing out, like you don't, it's like a inverse black hole. Like he radiates away and you start driving at him. It's like, magnets opposed.
Have you seen that Wemby highlight reel where it's like, Wemby's done it.
It's the turn away. It's the U-turn. And I think it's timing, but it's being so big. Like, talking to other players at Summer League, I'm like, hey, what do you think of Donovan? He's so big. Yeah. He's so big. Like, damn, he's big. It was every single player, both for the Blazers and opponents.
Yeah.
Same thing every time. He's like, man, he's big. And it's just like, there's big in the NBA, and then there's that. And he's like, day one, you're talking Zach Edey, Victor Wembanyama, Rudy Gobert, Donovan Klingon. Like he's in that group of like, when you're talking size of the NBA, he's one of the 5 biggest guys in the league.
Yeah.
Day one. And that's the fact that he's got that ability with that size. It could be special defensively.
All right, let's get to some Blazers superlatives. So we have 5 categories here. Yeah. We have team MVP, we have breakout player of the year, we have defensive player of the year, we have the player with the most to prove heading into next season, and then we're gonna wrap up. I don't even know if this is a realistic question, but the last one's gonna be the Blazers making the playoffs.
No,
just nix that one.
It's like saying you cross that one. The Blazers make the playoffs if World War III breaks out and 29 other teams leave.
Every other player gets drafted to the war. All right,
and they're playing against college players. Like, again, it's not a shot at this guys. When it's all said and done this year, they're going to have one of the youngest teams in the league. Like, it's just you can't win at that age. You're like, oh, the Thunder, and I'm like, congratulations for finding the one team in NBA history. Exceptions are not rules, guys. Yeah. So,
and even then, like SGA is like he's young, but he's an MVP.
Yeah,
Chet's a rookie of the year, like generational development.
Because those have always been on the same like bad teams, right?
Right. Yeah. All right, let's start off team MVP.
I'm gonna go maybe a little outside the box here. I'm gonna say Deni Avdija because he is going to be the thing that covers up for so much. Even though they're gonna be bad, the Blazers have needed more rebounding. The Blazers have needed more playmaking. The Blazers have needed more shooting. The Blazers have just needed more. And he ticks all of those boxes. He's not the best at any of them, but because he's a jack of all trades, I think his impact is going to be very exaggerated, even on a poor team, because it showed up on a Wizards team that was significantly worse than this Blazers team.
All right, let's go with this. Let's go breakout player of the year.
I think everybody would assume that I would say Scoot, but it's going to be Shaedon.
Okay.
Shaedon Sharpe. Shaedon, unfortunately, his injury last year, the core injury, limited him to 32, 35 games.
That sounds right.
But he is the kind of player that started to show that he could be 25, 5-5.
Yeah.
And walk into it, and you went, oh, okay. His talent is otherworldly. He's a 6'5" freak. He is in that, when you talk about that 1% athlete in the NBA, he is that guy. He's the guy that can take off a foot outside the free throw line and dunk. He is the guy that his ability to create separation when he has the ball is insane. His pull-up game, it is, this feels so sacrilegious to say, is very reminiscent of Brandon Roy, which Brandon is the guy that, Kobe was like, this guy, his game is perfect.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
He has there's no flaw to his game. And Shaedon is very reminiscent of Brandon, how he moves, the economy of motion. He's not hezzy tween. Like, no, it's one go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
he's the hooper that a lot of old heads like, man, remember when basketball was less simpler?
Yes, and the thing is, like, he plays a very simplified game, which I like, because you're not expending this insane amount of energy to create a shot. Get on the ball, not there, keep it moving, get off it, attack. That's it. He can play equally on ball, off ball. Health is going to be a big thing, but even more for him is consistency, because that's the thing, because he still is so young, and he went from playing in an EYBL league to the NBA. He did not play in college at Kentucky.
Yeah.
And then he had, at Kentucky, it's coming out of the COVID year where not only did he not play, not a whole lot of development time, right?
Yeah.
So he's still a guy who's very young and has had some limited development. But I think he will be a breakout guy, and it would not surprise me at all to see him be like 18, 5-4.
Yeah.
And we go, there it is. There it is. As he gets ready to go into year 4.
I had him on my breakout list heading into this past season, and he's probably going to be on my breakout list. So I do that video heading into next year as well. Defensive player of the year. There's actually a couple of options.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Matisse Thybulle is still here. He's the best disruptor in the NBA. He's not the best defender, but he's the best disruptor and best defensive playmaker.
Yeah.
Tumani Kamara
he's good.
A dog. So I'm not going to throw any names out there because this was told to me in confidence. But as I've talked to 3 starting point guards in the NBA last year after the game, and all were all-stars. And I was like, hey, what did you think of 2? And one version or another from each of them was, he's a bleepity bleep. and it was like, and they said it with a smile, like, I don't like playing him because he picks up 90 feet and rides you like a horse.
He doesn't lose energy. There's like, bro, how are you doing this every possession?
And he's 6'7", 6'8", like 225, like
long arms,
big, strong, long, and he just goes.
Yeah.
He just goes, man. It's going to be a toss-up between him and Denny.
Yeah.
Because neither of them generate steals or blocks. Like, they are not stocks guys.
Yeah.
They're just great individual and team defenders.
Yeah.
And I think you can flip a coin, and I think you're going to end up right.
Yeah. For me, I'm just going to go with the guy that says it's going to be a top 10 defensive big by the end of his rookie
Klingen's an
year.
easy one. Yeah.
I'm just going to go with Klingen. I feel like if I have those expectations on you, I can't go otherwise.
The only reason I wouldn't say him first is because he's going to play 18 minutes a night.
Yeah.
That's literally the only reason why.
Yeah, that's fair. Last but not least, which player has the most to prove heading into next season?
Scoot feels like the easy answer, but Shaden's right there too. But I'm going to go with Scoot. Scoot's the number 3 overall pick.
Yeah.
He had a historically bad shooting season as far as efficiency was concerned.
Yeah.
So the bar's not that high. So like, while he has a lot to prove, it's really easy for him to do it. Yeah. If he comes out and averages like 15, 5 and 5, 15, 7 and 5,
but more efficient,
but like shoot like 43% from the field, and
which is bad. That's not great.
But like 43% from the field and like 36% from 3 and 78 to 80% from the free throw line. Like, show the steps.
Yeah. Like,
and while taking better care of the ball, like that alone is going to be like, oh, there you go. But let's say he has like a 17-7 season in him. Now you're going,
there's the number 3 pick.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the thing, is like he can very easily in a short amount of time kind of get back on the path that people thought he was going to be on right out of the gate.
Yeah. I think Scoot obviously makes a ton of sense. And to your point, it's like, okay, like at this point, just show me something.
Yeah.
To where I can
consistently do something.
Consistently do something where we can say, all right, year 3, this is where, we start to maybe not fully put it together, but it's like, okay, like we have something now. Like we are able to latch on to this one thing with Scoot Henderson. And again, it's another reason why, like I said earlier, I'm not ready to put the arrow up on him, because like we kind of talked about earlier, he's probably, and thank you G League Ignite for this, he's probably like an added year in his growth curve that he probably should be, which is why I thought it was ridiculous that Ron Holland didn't just go to Texas. Just go. You're a top 10 pick anyway. Just go to Texas.
I don't care if Chris Beard left. Go anyways.
Go anyway. But yeah, this was a ton of fun, Danny. You put 2 people that could just talk for hours together, and this is what you get on top of the hour damn near long roster breakdown. So this is a ton of fun, Danny. I'm really, really glad you were able to hop on with me for this one. Danny, please tell the great people where they can find your amazing content.
Well, not amazing, but I appreciate it. You can find me every day, Monday through Friday on 1080 The Fan, noon to 3 if you're in the Portland market, or youtube.com/1080 AM The Fan if you want to watch any of the replays or the live show of the radio show. Jack Ramsey's, anywhere you get podcasts, at Jack Ramsey's on social media. And you can find me at Danny Marang across all social media, except for Instagram, where it's at D Marang, because somebody's been squatting on my handle for 7 years. Whoever you are, you're a monster.
Dude, just
let it go.
POS.
Let it go.
Just let it go. Let it go, man.
Rude. So rude.
How dare you? Well, Danny, my man, thank you so much for hopping in with me, guys. Thank you all for tuning into this breakdown of the Portland Trailblazers. Hit that like button and subscribe here to the channel. Until next time, everybody. See ya. Stay safe and peace out.